dash of creativity. Sometimes it is a dash. Sometimes it's a lightning bolt out of the clear blue sky. Sometimes it's a matter of doing something really unusual, being creative, and sometimes the creativity really goes a long way. Here's actually the creative process. Preparation, you want to understand the problem or opportunity, you want to investigate different things, and then this thing called incubation. Now, a lot of times I will go through on a presentation and I'll think about the presentation, and it drives people crazy because I'm going through a process. So I'm thinking about something, and all of a sudden, boom, I have an idea and I work fervently, sometimes too late in the cycle that drives people crazy, okay? And I implement it and boom, then it's verification time. But the incubation period, sometimes it's not a matter of being moved by anything, it's a matter of processing. Sometimes I can make decisions quickly, but other times I need to pause, especially if it's some type of creative endeavor. That incubation is a big thing. Sometimes it's not conscious. Sometimes you have to stop thinking about something, especially on a major project or a major commitment that you're about to make. So back up a little bit and stop and think. Okay, if you have to go have a cup of coffee with a friend, sleep on it overnight. And then all of a sudden illumination hits. Now, sometimes I'm going to talk about this in just a little bit. The illumination, sometimes you have to get up and write it down. Boom, it happens. Get up and write it down, because sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes these things slip out and all of a sudden, whoa, that's the way to solve it. And then half an hour later, you have no idea. You knew that you solved all the problems of the universe and you know how to bring world peace to us, except it escaped you because you forgot to write it down. Write it down. Make sure you write it down as quickly as you can. If somebody's talking, hang on, and get your phone out and stick it in a text to yourself if you have to. And then later on, by the time you're done with the aspect of that illumination, verify it and then proceed on your process. There's a gal named Twyla Tharp. Okay, she is a ballerina and she established her own dance studio. She's noted really worldwide for a lot of the different ballets she's brought to the theater. She wrote this book, and in the book, she talked about creativity hits her in the wee hours of the night between 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. And she made it a habit of writing things down. Lo and behold, I found that sometimes I get up, and maybe you have the same thing. Sometimes I have something that hits me and I started putting a pen and paper next to the bed. Now, the problem is that I got to be careful not to turn the light on. I get in trouble or whatever in the process. Right? Turn that light off. Okay, so I have to write things down. But sometimes I wake up in the morning and I look in the paper that I wrote. I thought, oh, this is a good idea. It is incredible how often in the wee hours of the night, something stirs us and we solve a problem in our sleep. And if we don't capture it in that moment, we have a problem. One of my students, I talked about this process of creativity, and she's a Hindu. And she told me, well, that's the penultimate phase, or the muhurta of the night. Well, that happens between about 3 o'clock in the morning, where the Hindus believe that we are most connected with the universe. If you go check the data, most hospital deaths occur for people that are sleeping between 3 and 4 a.m. That 3 o'clock time really is a big thing. A lot of people connect with things and they release themselves from pain and misery, but you'll see that we do have a connection, and sometimes there's that creative moment. Regardless of that, I recommend you sit down and pay attention to when creativity strikes you, that illumination moment. Write it down, whether it's in the middle of the night, in the middle of the morning, in the middle of a meeting, in the middle of having a sip of coffee in the morning. Sit down and have that, or in the middle of the night. Use that creativity. If you have a chance, check out the Twyla Tharp book. Okay, it's frankly, I found it illuminating, even though it's written by somebody who I have no relationship with, or I'm not into ballet. The woman is brilliant about creativity and has helped me in my entire life. Here's a couple of things on creative people. A lot of times they have an independent imagination. They're open to experiences. You want to have 1 or 2 people on your different committees that have these characteristics. It really is handy. Now, by the way, they can drive you crazy sometimes too, because you're coming up with so many different things. They're almost like a hamster that spins around on a wheel, and they pop out ideas, and they put out 20 ideas, and you're listening to them, and you get a headache trying to sit there and comprehend what they're spitting out. And all of a sudden, one or two of them are absolutely brilliant beyond belief, but you have to capture them. Okay, a lot of them have strong self-direction. They have a strong stimulation value. You get these creatives, and they're on a committee, and all of a sudden, everybody's brain starts imagining the possibilities. If you find one of these, make certain you always have a creative there, especially if you have a discipline that is highly detailed, especially human resources, businesses, watching the finances. If you put one of these in the middle of a group like that, you may stimulate a lot of massive activity to get really fabulous things done. Their cognitive and practical intelligence, they can synthesize, analyze, and apply ideas sometimes very quickly, and they're persistent. They need to achieve a lot of times. They have a prerequisite of knowledge and experience, and they're not always locked into a fixed knowledge asset. This is something valuable to keep and pay attention to in the aspect of learning it in the class, but also the practical application after the class. Creative work environments, you have a lot of them. You'll see the technology companies, they really emphasize this of having time to sit down and go off and self-isolate, or having a group work area. You'll have a lot of different things. The learning orientation, enriched jobs, a lot of it is autonomy. Later on, we're going to study some things on motivation. There's a theory X person who really controls everything on motivation. And then to complement that person, you have a theory Y person. And the theory Y person really wants employees to have freedom for creativity, and they complementing versus the theory X, where they sit down, they have a negative attitude towards the employees. If you want to have a good creative work environment, you have to sit down and release some of the controls and let your creatives sit there, come up with different ideas, complement them, evaluate them, but don't bash them down or lock them in as best you possibly can. And the aspect, sometimes they go off on different tangents. Sometimes you have to tolerate that for some of the brilliance that comes out of it. Make certain there's good communication happening. Make certain you have a leader and coworker support, at least usually, because of the fact that you want that creative aspect of it. But make certain the creativity is focusing on the organization's behalf, not their own personal behalf, because that can happen as well. Redefine the problem. Sometimes you think you know what the problem is, but it really isn't. Sometimes you're still dealing with surface issues. Sometimes on creative activities, put it into a group and let the group start talking about it. You want to revisit, involve other people. Sometimes you do playful activities. If you go out there and if you read, I just read an article in the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal talks about the pain of going to the playtime of organizations. We have a lot of people don't come into work 5 days a week anymore. So quarterly, a lot of companies are going to, let's have a play date at so-and-so. We'll go play softball and do this. And everybody's eyes roll to the back of their head because of the fact that the last thing I want to do is go out and hang out and have fun at work. Like, oh my gosh, fun can almost be playful. But yes, you want to have that if you possibly can, because you're going to get a lot of cross-pollination between ideas and also people. You want people to get along and think in the team mindset as much as you possibly have, and have some design thinking when it comes down to looking as problems within the organization. 4 design thinking rules. The human rule involves other people. We are creatures of a crowd. Sometimes we can isolate as individuals, come up with ideas, but a lot of our best ideas come when we're working as part of a group. The ambiguity rule, we want to avoid problem identification too soon, because too often we do that surface problem rather than the deep problem or the root problem. Sometimes the redesign rule consider past solutions and future possibilities. Now, let me give you a bit of advice here. Whenever you sit into a chair of authority, you have what I call grapevines tied to that chair. People will sit down and they'll come whisper in your ear because they're good, loyal people, but also they want something. So you walk into a new company, you have an executive position. I promise you what will happen. People will come to you and they'll whisper in your ear about a problem and they have a solution, or because they're worried about what you might do. They already are in the status quo a lot of times, and they want to maintain their status quo and their position, whether it's a formal position or an informal position, and they want to have your ear. But a lot of times they're going to bring their own solutions that'll benefit them personally in their career pathway or financially. So be careful about making decisions. If there's an old saying that before you take down a fence, make certain you know why it was put up. So be careful about the aspect of identify the problem. Well, this problem's been around for 5 years. Oh, good. Let's tear that fence down. Let's do this. Be careful. Go find out why that problem's been around for 5 years, because sometimes it's one of these things where the solution is not obvious. The solution may not be taking that fence down. It may be adding concrete and steel to the fence to make certain that we don't go a certain pathway. So redesign, consider the past, find out why things happened in the past before you abandon current practices based upon the past. And sometimes the past will hold you from future possibilities. So be careful, pay attention. A lot of times build prototypes, enhance learning. So creativity, it really depends on the person, how it's approached. Some of you listening to this are highly creative. Some of you are not, which means you need to listen. Even if you are creative, make certain that you're listening to others. Preparation, incubation, illumination, verification, pay attention to that. Pay attention to that magic hour of the night, the 2, 3, and 4 o'clock area. If something prompts you, I encourage you to have a piece of paper and a pen next to your bed. If you can use your cell phone, that's fine too, but make certain that you have a way of recording things that just happen in the middle of the night. You can write them down. Employees that have freedom on their work often can be more creative, and brainstorming and ideation sessions related to play are always productive and helpful because it builds camaraderie. It also builds some fabulous ideas. A dash of creativity, a smart move in every workplace. Take care.